Ladies and gentlemen,
Good evening.
Are you ready?
Okay, here we go.
You're listening to the Deal Room Podcast. Join us as we bring you the inside scoop on business sales and acquisitions. Get across trends in the area and hear the industry's best recount their real-life tips, traps, and experiences. Now, here's your host, Joanna Oakey.
Hi, it's Joanna Oakey here, and welcome back to the Deal Room Podcast, a podcast proudly brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. Now we're picking up right where we left off in part one of this two-part series, where we are continuing the conversation with our two fantastic guests, Brett Goodyear and Alex Gilchrist, as we explore what to do when red flags pop up in a business purchase and how to turn risk into a strategic advantage. Alex from Seek Business brings real-world insights from his work with brokers and buyers around Australia. And Brett is a valuation specialist and forensic accountant with over 30 years of experience in assessing risk, value, and deal readiness. In this episode, we talk about what to watch out for in listings and financials and when to dig deeper, how excessive addbacks or losses affect business value, and ways buyers can negotiate smarter deals to manage risk, as well as a whole lot more. P.S. If you missed the live webinar that triggered this Q&A episode, don't worry, it's now available on demand. You'll find the link in the show notes and on our website. And just a little side note, this is our 300th episode of the Deal Room Podcast. So just want to take this opportunity to say a very huge thank you to you, our listeners, for listening, learning, and being part of the journey. Whether you've been tuning in from day one, which was around about 6 or 7 years ago, I think, or whether you're new here, we're so grateful to have you along for the ride. A big thank you as well to our guests for helping us mark this milestone with such practical and insightful conversations. All right, well, without further ado, let's get now into part two of this special 300th episode of the Deal Room Podcast. Here we go. I want to jump into another question that we had here. This is an interesting one from one of the attendees. Question over to you, Alex. And this question, this attendee said, I'm interested in the answer to this. I think many viewers would also be interested. So let's test this out, see if it's interesting. Is the weekly revenue shown on the Seek Business portal accurate, or is it possibly posted just to attract buyers? Now, of course, Alex, you can't verify everything that sellers put in there. So it is a little bit buyer beware and do your due diligence. But I don't know, do you have anything to throw in there, Alex?
We don't actively screen to make sure it's completely accurate, but we encourage all our sellers that they do fill out all the various parts of the ad to attract the right and relevant buyer. From our data, we do see that people who put that information in do get like a significant uplift in inquiry to help them sell their business. But I would hope that it's true, and there are terms on our site that say everything has to be true and accurate, but I would still take it with caution. I would still talk to your financial advisors and your various partners to make sure it's accurate. But saying that, if sellers do fill out that section on the listing, it will get promoted into a more relevant position. Our job's to provide as much information we can in an easy, digestible way for our buyers to find it.
It's great that you can access all of that sort of information. But I think like the big message here is buyer beware. Don't take anything at face value. Like you've got to undertake your own investigations.
What our team will do is we do look at all the ads, or I'd say the vast majority of ads that do go live. And if they look suspicious, that they'll be taken down. And if listings look suspicious, they're taken down. And particularly with franchises, if it's not quite matching with what we think our audience wants to see, it won't get onto the site.
Well, when we dig a bit more into that, what sort of suspicious stuff do you see, Alex? Can you do?
Like pyramid schemes or something along those things, like people are trying to advertise on site. And sometimes it's not even a genuine business opportunity. It looks more like a scam. Like it may have a false ABN number. It may be someone from overseas who's just trying to get on the site to basically take someone's money. And there have been cases, there is a pretty strict process where everyone is spoken to before they go live. But I can't give a real example right now, but if it doesn't look relevant and real, yeah, it won't appear.
Love it. Good one. Okay, thanks, Alex. Okay, oh my God, there's just so many questions here and they're so good. Maybe, guys, we could actually write a book from this, I think. Maybe that's what we need to look at doing. But here's one. How about we try this one? Okay, Brett, take a step back and a breath before you answer this question because this might make you a little bit angry. But what do we do? How do we value a business when a business owner is deliberately showing loss? Now, I think we might know what you're going to say to this, but why don't you tell us what's the approach that you use in your approach to appraisals and valuations where there's a lot, but how do you dig for what? Do you have sellers who are wanting you to do valuations who say, this is the figures I'm providing, this is the figures that I can verify, but this is the real figures. I guess it relates to the cash discussion, right?
It's not always cash, but this is one of those red flag issues as well. But essentially, when you're starting to look at a business where, on the books, they're making losses year on year, but they continue to fund the business. Quite often there's large, what we call DIP 7A loans in there, which is deemed dividends or loans to the owners that have never been repaid and various other things like that. What it comes down to in terms of the operating enterprise, we try to get to a point where we're saying we know how much money's coming in the door. We know what the expenses are to deliver that service or product. And therefore, this is the profit that we can attribute to that enterprise. The problem is that the books and records are being kept for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is for tax. A huge number of businesses in Australia, and those that we get to ask to value regularly, are trying to expense everything and anything, whether it's business related or otherwise. There's a car in there for the business owner, there's a car in there for their daughter and their wife and their mistress and whomever there might be. There's 5 cars, but it's a single electrician, whatever it might be. Or there was a car import business and they'd built themselves an enormous shed in their own backyard and expensed the lot during this $150,000 instant asset write-off depreciation policy. So it reduced their taxable income right down. They said, oh no, that's all for business purposes, except until I said, so why are we making losses? They said, oh, here's the list of stuff you need to add back. And so there's travel, there was motor vehicles, there was buildings for themselves, there was all sorts of stuff. And they gave me a great big list and they're the seller. They're paying me to do this valuation. So I will put those in, but I will always say, as advised by the business owner, these are the addbacks that they've advised are pertinent to this. But the first thing I'm talking about in terms of the red flags is if I saw that your financials had to have 30 lines or 5 pages of normalization adjustments made to them to get back to what is really the case, that's a massive red flag to me. That makes me run for the hills because what it means is I can't rely upon the real financials that you're putting into ATO that are your statutory records. I can't rely upon them as being correct. And I have to rely upon your say-so that all of these things ought to be added back. And you've already demonstrated that you're willing to lie to the tax office. So why would you not be willing to lie to me, the purchaser? And we can drill down on it. That essentially, if a business was sexy enough, I might still look at it and drill down on it. But I'd make sure I'd spend proper money and proper effort on the due diligence process to ensure that what I'm buying is right. But that first sniff test that we talked about is the critical part here. If I was looking at 3 different businesses of a similar nature, and one of them had 1,000 addbacks to get to their normalized profitability, that's the one I'd immediately cull.
Okay, so just 3 questions more. And this came up quite a few times in the chat, so I do think we should talk about it. There was this sort of discussion about businesses under management and how that might impact the multiple. And I guess, of course, like the answer is probably a high multiple. There's lots of other things to consider in the valuation of a business. But do you have just one note I want to make there on businesses that are claiming to be fully managed? In many instances, I believe you've really got to drill into that as well, because I find businesses that say, well, quite often might talk about themselves as fully managed, and yet perhaps we might find the owner is actually spending quite a bit of time in the business. So that's one thing to be aware of. Brett, any comment on valuations?
Generally, there's a significant uplift to multiples when the business is genuinely operated at arm's length from the owner. If what they're doing is strategic in nature only, so they're working on the business, but not full time, and what they're doing is coming in and checking the numbers, or they're essentially acting as a board member, that to me is hands off. If they are going in 3 days a week, they're still doing the reconciliations or still doing some specific work within the business to ensure that it keeps on running, then it is not running at arm's length. And quite often there's a disparity between what they say and what's happening. And that is obviously a DD target. I would always be drilling down on it, because I want to know, if I'm buying this, how much am I going to have to work in it? If I want to buy this as an arm's length investment, I want it to be operating on its own without me having to, on top of my other full-time job, work in this business as well. And that quite often happens. So yeah, I'd be encouraging any potential purchaser to drill down on, what do you do on a daily basis in this business? Tell me your list of tasks that you do. And after that, I'd make a decision on whether I might change my offer.
Alex, honestly, can you look for, as part of the search function, search for businesses that are fully managed? Is that a search?
It is. It's a keyword, and it's actually our 7th highest keyword that people look for on our site, like fully managed. But then what happens from there is you do hear of examples that when they find that business, it's not exactly the case. So it's just encouraged to drill down a little bit further from there. So again, I'm not sure if it is one of those parts to generate more engagement into the listing, or people's definitions of fully managed could be a little bit different, but it's definitely well up there as a search term, and then it will provide the list for the buyers to sift through.
Isn't that interesting? It is interesting because it also shows you the trends of why people are looking to buy a business right now. Super, super interesting. And actually, while we're talking about those trends, we've had a little bit of a discussion in the past about, and there are a few questions actually in the chat about this, about offshore traffic on Seek. Is there much that you can gauge from the data on the Seek website about the number of people offshore that are looking, where in Australia they're looking, what kind of businesses they're looking for, over time, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so we can drill down on that data and share to it, but it is actually still quite a very small percentage of the traffic that's visiting our website. But there have been cases where business brokers have asked for who's looking in Singapore and Hong Kong, for example, as they might have the relevant type of businesses for them to do their various marketing campaigns. The people that are looking though, and where they're looking from, I guess with their ethnic background, looking in those accommodation, tourism type businesses in regional locations, that's really picked up a lot. I'm thinking of places like Albury-Wodonga and even Bright and around those beautiful locations that we all holiday. And then they'll buy the business with a family of 2 or 3, keep it in there, and then it will stay in there for their generational wealth, and they'll have their children working within the business as well. I'm not sure how that's all reported on and everything, but there has been that sort of spike in traffic at our website. Yeah, so still very small, but we can look at it, and it's only going to continue to grow as Seek Business enhance our roadmap a little bit further as well.
I find that data so interesting, just super interesting. Once again, a shout out, we have a link in the show notes to that market insight report, so you can go there and get a free copy for yourself. Just one last question, and then I think we'll wrap up. But I really feel we've got another podcast / webinar / quite a few other things here, given the level of questions we had. we've obviously talked about valuations, we've talked about market trends, we've talked about all of these, and we've talked about red flags. I think the interesting question that has come up quite a few times is, so if you find these red flags, if you find that there's a business listed for more than you end up working out that it's work, you're on set website that they've been in there for a long period of time, whatever, there's red flags. What do you do next? How do you negotiate? Is it that you just walk away, or are there things that you can do? And I guess I'll just say from my perspective, I think the important thing to remember is a red flag doesn't mean you have to walk away. A red flag just means there's something else that might have to move. And from my perspective, the thing that can move is the way that we're structuring the deal so that risk is priced in a different, risk is priced in, and that maybe the value that you're coming up for the business is paid in multiple steps as you work out whether that risk is really there or not, whether that value transfers. So it's a sales structure, deal structure, what we put in the contract kind of answer to the red flags. I don't know, Brett, do you have any thoughts on
Absolutely.
valuation?
Look, it needn't even be to valuation, but it comes down to a red flag is not a symptom of necessarily a problem. It's just an indicator. It's something to say, hey, look deeper. And that's what a red flag really is. It's just saying, hey, that bears further scrutiny. When you drill down on those things, it might dissipate, or it could be that there is a real issue. And you need to be informed by your further analysis rather than just shooting from the hip, I think. So, that's the thing about red flags. It could be useful to you to negotiate a better position. If something's been on seek for an extended period of time, it doesn't mean it's not potentially a good deal. It just means that other people might be missing. And so it could be that you drill down on it and they've been there for a while. So it might be an opportunity to negotiate a better price. But not before having done some basic due diligence to ensure that what you want to purchase is actually available and that it's not a fanciful story, or it's the financials don't back up the round numbers they're throwing out there as being their average, or they're saying, oh, this is how much I earn, but that includes GST, or there's various different things that we could look at and satisfy ourselves that the red flag is not one that puts us off. And each of us has a different risk profile, as I said. So some people would go, look, I'm willing to roll the dice on this for this rather low price. I'm willing to roll the dice on this, especially if they've already got a business, for instance, that they can cobble it together and they're just trying to diversify income streams or widen their customer base or their geographical locations. So it doesn't preclude you from going through with a transaction. It just means look closer. It means do some research. And if you can't do it, get someone who can. But don't just accept it and roll on.
And I guess, I'm just going from a SEEK perspective from speaking with brokers, but I guess it would be like not all red flags would be equal. So categorize the severity. On SEEK business, there may be clear deal breakers that will have fundamental issues. Like they've obviously got confirmed fraudulent reporting or something, which we would hope would never make it on site. But then if there's minor issues that could be more like opportunities for improvement, like underutilized marketing or inefficient processes, sometimes that might be put in a listing as an opportunity but it's actually masking the red flag there. But yes, it's your opportunity to turn it into a good opportunity for yourself. So
at the right price and on the right terms is the answer to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Spot it in just the right way.
I just want to say an absolutely huge thank you to you both for coming along on the webinar. We had a very interactive audience there. So if you weren't there, shame on you. You better come to the next one live because there was a lot of fun happening in the chat. We've got lots of things sitting in your notes. Make sure you check out your notes so that you can get some of these downloads. Make sure you get the SEEK Market Insight Report and a link to Brett's book, of course.
Of course.
And Brett and Alex, I just want to say a huge thank you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Deal Room Podcast. We hope you're now primed for your next deal with these pointers and have enjoyed these fascinating insights. Now, if you'd like more information about this topic, then head over to our website at thedealroompodcast.com, where you'll be able to download a transcript of this episode, as well as access any contact details and any other additional information we referred to in today's podcast. Now, if you'd like to get in contact with our guests today and the services they offer, you can go ahead and check out our show notes for a link right through to them and their details. You can also book in directly with our legal legals at Aspect Legal if you'd like to soundboard your next steps, discuss a legal question, or find out more how we can assist, whether that's with buying or selling a business, or perhaps somewhere in between. Now, don't forget to subscribe to the Deal Room podcast on your favourite podcast player to get notifications whenever a new episode is out. We'd also love to hear your feedback, so please leave us a review and rating if you're already one of our subscribers, or even if you're listening to this podcast for the very first time. Every review helps our team produce valuable content for you. Well, thanks again for listening in. You've been listening to Joanna Oakey and the Deal Room podcast, a podcast proudly brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. See you next time.
Ladies and gentlemen.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.
Thanks for listening to the Deal Room podcast. To find out more about this episode and other episodes in the series, check out the show notes or head over to our website at thedealroompodcast.com.au.